The central nervous system of Foundry Inc. was the home office of espionage and enrichment. Every day, thousands of workers hustled and bustled all over the 109-acre campus with proprietary duties. The front desk, for which belonged to the shrewd and righteous receptionist Opal Rinderpest. Opal had the courageous job of wrangling every last emotional employee and agent of Foundry Inc. before they were filtered back to management. In fact, Opal was the last checkpoint in the arduous pre-employment screening process to see if the new hires could sufficiently withstand torture. Opal took this as a certain point of pride. A summons alert had just come across desk. Opal's desk. Picking up the receiver on her desk phone, she tapped two buttons and waited. "Yes, Opal?" said a nervous, high-pitched voice on the other line. The voice belonged to Jeffy the squirrel, her assistant. "Jeffy, be a dear and fetch me a fresh water and a fizzy tab packet in preparation." "In preparation for what?" asked Jeffy. Sighing heavily into the receiver, Opal stated, "The director has summoned Miss Rask." "Jane Rask! Shall I roll out the tripwire?" "Compose yourself, Jeffy. I shall see to it that Miss Rask gets back to the director in one piece." "Yes, Opal," said Jeffy, hanging up the phone. Jeffy had not cared for Jane Rask ever since the time she returned from a mission in Africa with a pack of Basenjis as a gift for the director. At the aircraft hangar in Roswell, Jane and Lucas were now conversing and eating pasta fajoule, Lucas's homemade specialty and Jane's favorite food. As Jane recounted in no shortage of detail her encounter with the number agents, they had approached Jane as officials from the Office of Interior Secrets, prepared to haul her to jail or submit to emotional rehabilitation training. This, of course, was all a ruse to perform a field test on the new Inkling on Jane. The director had selected Jane for the test and was also elated with the number agent's reports on the incident. Jane had been in Hackensack, New Jersey when the number agents approached her, and considering her blackout, the trio must have loaded her in the Fluff and Fold service laundromat as she woke up in Machine 9 in the Fluff and Fold of Carlsbad, New Mexico. Now that Lucas was up to speed, he ladled more pasta fajoule into both their bowls. Lucas then ran his finger through his wavy blonde hair, looking at nothing until he did see something. "I didn't know that the globe-trotting Jane Rask had a tattoo." Jane froze in place while sitting cross-legged on the floor, right hand supporting her bowl. Right hand supporting her bowl, spoon in her left hand holding position before her, mouth open. Indeed, on Jane's left hand, on the webbing between her thumb and index finger, was a tattooed symbol. Not the usual flower or frog that most girls get. "To each their own," said Lucas. Jane was still frozen in place, spoon in midair. Lucas sat down again cross-legged in front of Jane and snapped his fingers once across her eyes. Jane placed the spoon in the bowl and laid them on the side without breaking eye contact with Lucas. She inhaled lightly through her mouth. Her hands reached out and grabbed Lucas behind each ear, her fingers tangling in his blonde hair, and kissed him deeply. Lucas inhaled sharply through his nose and reciprocated the kiss. After a moment, Jane let go of Lucas's head. With his mouth agape, Lucas asked, "Jane, what did I do right?" "Lucas, I did that to make sure I could trust you, and now that I know I can tell you about the tattoo." "Oh, goody, I like this game. You can trust me with anything." Jane scrunched her nose at Lucas and presented her left hand backside open to him, asking, "What is A capital W with a strikeout line, said Lucas confidently. Jane held out faith and asked, Yes, and? Another kiss may jog my memory, said Lucas, smiling. Jane folded her hands and exhaled deeply. Now Lucas saw the tattoo correctly. 2. Oh my God. I'm going to break my arm. 2 capital A's. Lucas gasped loudly as his eyes became highly animated. Jane, you're the Aquan android. Duh, she said quietly. The next 11 minutes were questions surrounding her identity, the legality of her existence, the fact that the Foundry could be indicted for knowingly having a cosmic android on payroll, and the fact that Jane had organometallic skin under her human cover suit. That means you are a real superhero. No wonder you're top agent, and no one can knock you off your spot. You never gain weight, you never get sick, except you're super impulsive. Did you hack into an emotion chip? Asked Lucas. Jane held her fingers over her teeth as if trying to block the words from coming out of her mouth, saying, I can pick and choose what I want to feel. Lucas gasped so violently that the glass nitroglycerin bottles on the counter rattled, and then said, So, the rumors are true, the infamous Jane Rask. Lucas had his arms outstretched as if to display a trophy kill. Jane was not liking this current feeling mixing with Lucas's exuberance. Calculating to herself, she determined that only a viable course of action could solidify Lucas's trust. Jane grabbed Lucas by the ears, kissed him again, and spilling pasta fagioli with the maneuver. Lucas moved toward Jane, and what they shared was definitely an exercise in trust building. On Foundry Planet, under an oak tree the size of a small building, in a well-kept, lush, and extensive garden surrounding a sprawling mezzanine adjacent to the director's office, were twin 7-year-old girls from the now long-destroyed planet Babylon. The twins had iridescent dark cherry red iron skin and green hair that flowed like quicksilver. Silently, they put their toys away and steadied themselves against the oak tree. One twin placed her feet into the director's slacks, then into the director's shoes, and her sister climbed on her shoulders, and both twins finished dressing the director and returned to the director's office. Julie, the bubblegum rave nightmare, exited the shuttle and was now on Foundry Planet. Julie's journey would soon include rides in 2 taxis, a water ferry, and a tiny airplane. When she finally arrived at pub on the island, she made her way to the back of the establishment to a private booth where the crew was already waiting. Seated at the booth were Stink, Stank, and Stunk, the Weasel brothers. Stunk rose and motioned Julie deeper into the booth and resumed his seat at the end. Julie overturned a small box she had been carrying onto the table, spilling its contents. 2 large banded rolls of paper earth money and 2 months of digital hard drives. They contained video and audio security footage from the diner. It's all there, $4,000 and 2 months of footage, said Julie as she shook. Stank Weasel moved the toothpick from one side of his mouth to the other and said, Well, hello to you too, Julie. Hi, my, how time flies. Have you seen the news, kiddo? Shaking her head, Julie replied, I know I owe you the money for what I stole, but why the footage? Are you looking for someone? I could just keep an eye out. Julie stopped speaking as she realized her mistake in words. Stinkweasel leaned over the table towards her, a scar over his right eye, and both eyelids slightly deformed, and growled as he spoke. I think you've taken enough eyes out. It's healed nicely, said Julie through closed teeth. Follow orders, Julie. We will tell you when to stop, said Stink, as Stink retracted him into the booth, still growling. Stunk stood up, and as Julie exited the booth, they exchanged a sly flirty wink, and Julie set off back for Earth 4. The leader of the brothers, Stank Weasel, said, "Where are you, Jane Rask?" Melvin, a tenured team leader with the Mosquito Courier Services, a division of Foundry Incorporated, was flying outside of an open air louver near the roof of an aircraft hangar in Roswell, New Mexico on Earth 4. This was an auspicious event for Melvin. He had been hand-selected by the director to deliver a summons to Jane Rask herself. Melvin had received a summons to deliver this summons. The poetry of the situation almost brought its minuscule heart to tears. He puffed his tiny chest and thought, how official, how sterile, how stoic. Melvin pulled his diminutive vest down, straightened his little hat, and flew into the open louver. Melvin was immediately appalled at the state of the inside of the hangar. He quickly counted at least 40 fire and safety code violations, cigarette butts all strewn about, unsecured nitroglycerin, frayed electrical cord on the welder, forks on the forklift were left raised 4 feet off the floor, and pasta fajoule spilled adjacent to the unsecured nitroglycerin, and the horror! 2 nude bodies! Melvin scoffed a miniature decibel scoff and flew straight over. Melvin quickly identified the pair as the explosive expert Lucas Green and the director's top agent, the interminable Jane Rask. This gossip would give Melvin water cooler bragging rights for a year. Melvin laid it on Jane's exposed left hip and injected the blood-borne summons. Still asleep, Jane's reflexes squashed Melvin. He had led a full life. The director's private office was indeed opulent, but necessary. The director of Foundry Inc. was a very powerful and influential individual, and the Babylonian twins intended to maintain that power and influence remained secure for them for as long as they desired. The director's private office was sickeningly massive. The rectangular room was 120 feet long, 80 feet wide, and with a 20-foot high ceiling. The stone exterior of the foundry made up the interior wall of the long west side of the office. This wall boasted 10 sets of 16-foot tall glass and wrought iron doors separated by floor-to-ceiling height stone columns. The director appreciated the natural light, which in turn reminded the Babylonian twins of their home planet. The north interior wall had a 16-foot high wall bookcase complete with a rolling ladder. The director had accumulated so many books, he joked that not even a sneeze would now fit on the shelves. The south-facing interior wall had 6 glass and wrought iron windows. The long inner east wall had the door that conjoined with the office of Lily and Lila Fox, and framed with zebra wood was hanging on the wall the director's planetary map. The northeast and south interior walls were covered from floor to ceiling in dark stained oak veneer panels, oak crown molding, oak baseboards, and oak detail trim. The floors were dressed in thick rugs from the Far East of the original Earth. The director himself was dressed to the nines in an exorbitant suit from the old high-fashion houses of the original Earth. The director's desk and chair were no less impressive than the rest of the office. His chair was a darkly stained hardwood high back that was padded and covered in rich soft leather. The desk was made entirely of a rare hardwood that had come from original Earth in the region of South Africa, and it was called pink ivory for its red and pink colors throughout the grain, and had an extremely high gloss sheen, including the legs. The body of the desk was 4 feet wide and 16 feet long. On the top of the desk were an exclusive use phone that rang either Opal Rinderpest or Lily and Lila's office. Finally, next to the phone was a cup containing number 2 wooden pencils. The Babylonian twins were covetous of original Earth artifacts. The director, now seated at his chair behind his desk, was rolling a number 2 wooden pencil between his fingers of his right hand, contemplating what school must have been like for children long ago on original Earth, when all of a sudden the phone rang. Using the eraser, Andy pushed a flashing button, and in a deep and soothing voice, the director said, "Yes?" "Sir, Jane Rask has received the summons." "Very good." "Sir, there is something else." "Yes, Opal." "Sir, Miss Rask has eliminated the courier." There was a loud snapping sound on the director's side of the line. "Sir." "Thank you, Opal. I will take it from here." "Very good, sir." The director rose from his chair and walked over to the adjoining door to the Fox women's office, knocked twice, opened the door, and was greeted by 2 voices in unison. "What are we doing today, boss?" "Taking over the galaxy," he replied. On the director's desk were 2 halves of the number 2 pencil, broken so cleanly and crisply it appeared a machine had precisely cut the wooden writing instrument. Lily and Lila, the Fox women from planet Volpus, were preparing coffee and cookies as the director strode through the threshold. "Hiya, boss," they said with the usual nasal breach. "Girls, you spoil me." "Oh, boss, you are hilarious," said Lila. "Yeah, boss," said Lily. "We're so busy we can barely get the chance anymore." The director sat in a plush leather recliner as Lily was handing him a freshly made Americano. Lila handed him a plate with miniature mountain-shaped cookies. Smiling at Lily and Lila, the director lifted a cookie into the air and said, "Strive for the summit." "Strive for the summit," said the girls. The director dunked the cookie, ate it, and immediately downed the entire hot beverage. Lily took back the small coffee cup, and Lila took back the cookie plate. The director started to speak slowly. "Lily, Lila." The Fox women's ears shot to attention as they gave each other side-eye. They knew that if the director addressed them by first names, that business was about to become deadly serious. The director continued, "I have no doubt of the skills listed in your respective dossiers." Lily and Lila shifted their weight on their hind paws. "So if I request both of you to do something menial, please understand that there is a greater purpose later. Girls, I need you to make some phone calls." Lily and Lila turned to look at each other yet again, and this time doubled over laughing, spluttering, interrupting each other back and forth. "Oh, boss, you are hilarious. We thought you wanted us to make someone disappear." The director sat calmly, grinning this whole time. Lily and Lila were now standing again, however, continuously snorting and chuckling. The director produced a file and handed it to his 2 most trusted employees. "This is everything you will need. Do not contact me. I will be in the garden." "Bye, boss," said the Foxes as they finger-waved. "Bye, girls," said the director calmly. The director then opened a set of French doors, stepped out onto the mezzanine, down onto the garden behind the massive oak tree. The director then disrobed, and the Babylonian twins played with their toys quietly.